Besides inventory movements and reclassification journals, you can also use movement worksheets to move items in the warehouse. And these movement worksheets contain a very interesting function, the bin replenishment function. But let's first have a look at how to use them manually. So I will search for movement worksheets. There we go. So, and just like the internal movements, the movement worksheets are used to prepare the movement document. So this is not posting the movement itself. So you will prepare it and then transfer it to the movement document. So let's start with entering a line manually. So I will start with, let's take the Paris guest chair. So after selecting the item, I will go to the From Bin Code field, because by clicking here on the From Bin Code, I will get the bin content list. And so we have inventory on one of the bulk bins. All right, so I will select B01001. And there we go. And then I will move it to another bin. So to bin code, let's take a picking bin. So let's take this one, for example. And yeah, let's keep it simple. Let's just move 2 units. So that's basically what a movement is. It's going from a bin to another bin. This is, you can consider this as a manual movement because I'm entering everything manually. But like I just said, we cannot post the movement from the movement worksheet. So the next step would be clicking on Process and then Create Movement. All right, let's now create the movement document. So I will click here on Process and then Create Movement. All right. So now we have a new inventory movement. So I will search for inventory movement. So here you can see the new inventory movement. Let's open the document. All right, and so here you can basically see, so I will take 2 units from the bulk bin and I will place it on one of the picking bins. So quite simple. The only thing left is fill in the quantity to handle. So I will do this automatically. There we go. And then I will register the inventory movement. All right, so yeah, basically quite similar to using internal movements, which we saw in one of the previous units. But like I already mentioned, the interesting thing about movement worksheets is that we can use the calculate bin replenishment function. So, and what is the calculate bin replenishment function doing? It's replenishing bins based on a number of conditions. So it's replenishing bins that have fixed items or items that have fixed bins. Something we saw in one of the previous units, in the bin contents page, you can enter an item and select fixed, which means that that's the fixed bin for the item. And then it will replenish the bin from a lower ranking to a higher ranking based on the minimum quantity and the maximum quantity that you have entered on the bin contents. So let's run the function. So I will select calculate bin replenishment. So next on the request page, there are a number of things that you can do. You can enter the worksheet name, the location code is north, so I will stick to that. Allow break bulk, do not fill auto quantity to handle, and so on. So I will just leave everything as it is because I have limited demo data, so you will not see many lines, so a few lines will appear. So let's run the function. So there you can now see the suggestions that Business Central makes. So it suggests to replenish the London swivel share 64 units from a bulk bin to a picking bin, and the Paris guest share 40 units, quite similar, from a bulk bin to a picking bin. All right, so where does these units, these quantities come from? So let's quickly double check the location setup or the bin content setup. And I will do this by going to the location. There we go. All right, location north. Next, I will click on, let's see, location, and then I will go to bins. So, and the system was suggesting to replenish from bulk to bin, which makes sense because it's from a lower ranking to a higher ranking. So, and that's why yeah, it's always advised to give your picking bins higher ranking than your storage bins, because you typically want to replenish from bulk to pick. And then if we look at one of the bin contents, so I will use this one. So first of all, you can see that the item has a fixed bin, so the item number and fixed is selected for this bin, and that the minimum quantity is 10, the maximum quantity 40. So, and replenishment takes place when the quantity on the bin is less than the minimum quantity, and the system will try to replenish to the maximum quantity. So currently the quantity is 0, which is less than 10, of course, and there is enough inventory to replenish to 40. You see, and for the other it's quite similar. So that could be interesting because companies can have many items, many bins, and the bin replenishment function will help them replenish picking bins so that warehouse pickers, for example, do not run out of inventory. Okay. All right, so for the rest, it's quite similar to my previous example. I can now click on Process, Create Movement. So that will create my inventory movements. And then finally, I can search for inventory movements. So there we go. And if I open the document, you will see both items with the take and the place action. And the only thing left is autofill the quantity to handle and then register the movement. So that's how you can use the bin replenishment function. So the calculate bin replenishment function to replenish certain bins in the warehouse.